Now, there is no doubt about it that Snow White 2025 is considered by far one of the worst box office failures, not just with Disney, but also in the entire film history when it comes down to live-action remakes. We already know that it's right up there with, of course, Dragon Ball Evolution on the IMDb rating score.
Always, due to the fact that the Walt Disney Company headed the scheduled debut in the United Kingdom for there is currently an upcoming Snow White film featuring Rachel and scheduled for release in 2025. Major unrest in Zegler and Galadoo has permeated the whole Disney effort. Top executives and CEO Bob Iger, some board members seem to have supervised a production that was rife with issues that many onlookers perceive with the business. Perhaps it would have been better to scrap this early live-action adaptation.
So with Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck back then.
Additionally, reducing it to long-term storage that is similar to how some studios have addressed other movies judged too dangerous to complete or release in light of these problems anew. There has been debate about if Snow White will ever make an appearance on, according to several accounts, Disney+. Disney is reluctant to include the movie in its streaming service after a long, unfavorable rumors.
It doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
While others claim that any choice to forego a Disney Plus launch could be inspired by financial factors or the will to keep the larger brand apart from the project's negative publicity from any angle. Considers the idea that Disney could be Snow White being rejected by itself. The streaming service has generated rumors in the industry. Rachel Zegler, who has served as a alleged focal center of this dispute, expressed a great deal of disappointment after hearing recommendations that the movie may be excluded from or postponed forever from the platform.
To go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control over that.
On the set, challenges have been growing for some time. According to insiders, the 3 separate rounds of the project were conducted of reshoots to try to correct the pacing issues, rearranged important plot points, and changed the plot of the movie in general. Greta Gerwig, who helped with the screenplay, purportedly came across obstacle after obstacle as she attempted to fulfill the studio's specifications. Even if these changes were meant to save the movie, each important change appeared to bring in a new group of issues.
This girl took the money and then decided that she wanted to go out there and, you know what, I'm going to take my stand. Well, you should have made that stand before you took the money to promote a film, because that's not in line with your job description.
Right.
In the meantime, a tight relationship between Rachel Zegler is the principal lead, and Galadoo has garnered interest in its own. Reports show that Rachel Zegler's remarks spoken in public regarding a 1937 animated masterpiece that talks about the source content prompted by Brothers Grimm. Broad condemnation. These statements were viewed by many as both contemptuous of the cherished background of Snow White and signifying a contemporary reinterpretation that can be deviating excessively from the original story.
I think this is their policies coming back to bite them. They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her, because then you're going after somebody for saying what you say you believe.
Admirers who treasured the fairy tale legacy started to worry that the latest adaptation was becoming less aware of the treasured ideas that had characterized the tale for decades as unfavorable press. Based on the views of Rachel Zegler, a hint of annoyance purportedly swept across the manufacturing team. Based on multiple reports, she and Galadoo fought repeatedly over, in specifically artistic direction, in relation to their own personalities.
But at the same time, I think going forward, they're going to be like, hey, shut up.
Yeah.
Tight-lipped. Otherwise, guess what? We're clawing back some money.
Yeah. This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her, a prince, if it wasn't about socialism.
The third deed of the movie proved particularly troublesome to film using a prearranged scene situated in the enemy's stronghold with the 7 Snow White villagers, friends facing the malevolent queen. While filming this, word got out that complicated incident between Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler had a disagreement that became so intense that, unable to complete several takes without continual interference with production, members remember that it took about 25 is to capture this crucial engagement.
I think they could have done all that woke shit. You want to call woke? They could have done all that still. And as long as she had gone out and been like, well, we just have a different story. I like the old story, but we're doing a different one this time.
You're probably right.
The backlash would have been 10 times.
Yes. You're probably right.
This contained in the evil's menacing monologue, Snow White's queen, resulting in conflicting opinions regarding the well-being of society during these many takes. It seems like tension on site increased as every performer has strong opinions regarding the appropriate way to deliver the phrases and how should the atmosphere develop.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler.
One significant point of dispute was Galadot's choice to make some of her speech presenting a more sinister aspect of her personality, despite the writer and director appeared to value. With this strategy, Rachel Zegler developed uneasy. She allegedly thought the emphasis on Snow was lessened by improvisation. White at a pivotal point eroding how important the heroine's heroism arc.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Those that contributed to the film asserted the whole filmmaking crew got ensnared in the middle, unsure on how to make the conflicting ideas for this one, although important aspect of the narrative. The awkward atmosphere got to a point where a large number of people on set felt a disagreement between the 2 lead actors had allegedly grow uncontrollable once. Rachel Zegler was upset with Gal Gadot for failing to follow the precise script or to include recommendations that rely too much on the adversary's viewpoint as an irreversible split appeared.
So the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
The atmosphere gradually worsened, encouraging the actors and staff to continue their distance and only carry out their duties that make things more difficult. The creative leaders made the decision to eliminate the full scene from the finished cut provided. The attempts at reshoots had been made in several years, leading to problems with continuity with other scenes in the movie. According to witnesses, the scene was first videotaped once and then again, although both attempts were plagued by numerous issues that incorporating it into the finished item become unfeasible.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
Tonal continuity errors, footage that is inconsistent and incompatible, claim to have created any smooth integration. Impossible in spite of the considerable amount of time and expenditure. Rachel Zegler is said to have been incredibly annoyed by that decision since she thought she was included in the now-deleted scene. Greatest performance, according to her, was the peak of Snow White's emotions, intended to draw attention to the heroine's determination and moral principles, yet with the increased focus on the negative queen following multiple changes.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible.
Some people believed that greater attention was aimed at the antagonist's viewpoint, changing the balance of the story in the latter portion of the movie exacerbates these problems by the entire project was delayed by a complete year that was originally scheduled for release in. It was moved from 2024 to 2025. The explanation given by industry observers is the comprehensive redesign of the culminating act that needed to be put together. Several members of the cast and crew once more rework significant portions of the narrative.
In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
The Disney leadership is up against more scrutiny in the hopes that delaying the date could give you more time to improve the finished product and reduce bad press associated with the unrest. That tactic just postponed the unavoidable conflict with detractors and admirers who continued to doubt. The adjustment, in addition to the friction between Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, had become so well known that their presence together during advertising events or premieres presented a risk that could result in bothersome inquiries concerning their collaboration.
It basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism.
That possibility could justify the studio's sudden cancellation. Insiders, the well-known UK premiere, imply that the business was cautious about a live event where reporters would definitely ask about set rumors. Conflicts those having direct knowledge of the subject uphold that. Specifically, Galadue was uninterested in red carpeting or sharing interviews. Rachel Zegler appearances.
So from the casting to the class politics, the sexual politics, the regime politics, everything about it was liberal.
Whether the only source of the stress was conflicts over creativity or from personal hostility, the overall outcome remained the same. Large-scale marketing initiatives were canceled under the conflict's weight on bystanders. Remembered that even during a recent awards ceremony, demonstrate the two avoided significant interaction, offering further proof of an ongoing split within the Disney hallways. These changes raised concerns.
Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, nope, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think we're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige.
Some workers are concerned that not only has adaptation lost its inherent cohesiveness as well as any kindness from potential customers, the businesses, executives assigned to safeguard the Disney is reportedly cautious about overshadowing the main message of the movie about friendship, growth, and hope with negative headlines pertaining to disputes among those intended to convey the narrative to existence.
But it's no really knock on her. If you did the autobiography of Malcolm X, would you cast Tom Hanks? If you remade Moana, would you cast a little Irish guy? No, you wouldn't. So that was off the top.
During these changes, the notion of Snow White's direct release to Disney. Additionally, Plus briefly floated a proposal, usually selected for mid-tier or initiatives impacted by the pandemic, but that, apparently, the path did not pick up speed. Perhaps because Disney has already invested a lot of money in marketing sets and costumes, and well-known celebrities.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana,
Snow White being turned down on Disney Plus could be a spectacular method of presenting a more complex reality. Maybe the movie will show up on the platform sometime. Point, albeit without the customary fanfare attributed to a well-known live-action remake. Another option is that Disney is not limiting its possibilities, awaiting the reactions of crowds and critics, respond to the dramatic window prior to choosing a streaming approach. Any reference to a refusal may result in, from people or from leaks, considering the company's hesitancy as a categorical rejection. However, the reality that there are even any allegations at all demonstrates the intensity of the disputes surrounding the movie. Almost never does a studio dabble in excluding a significant production from its streaming service, particularly one with a prominent Disney princess. This exceptional circumstance highlights just how delicate the project has grown. The response of Rachel Zegler as an insider characterize it as one of disappointment moderated by a certain amount of resignation. She's put a lot of effort into the position, both personally and professionally, that to watch the movie falter on the verge of limbo must be discouraging. Even for the most resilient marketing campaign may find it difficult to conquer the negativity that has. In fact, it was the audience's first. The project's perception was influenced by controversy and rumors instead of by a thoughtfully planned teaser or a exposing a behind-the-scenes video, rather than applauding the adaptation's distinctive features for viewers and commentators. Devoted months to examining alleged script rewrites for on-set arguments and dubious public statements made by the most popular movie celebrity in contemporary media, setting that early narratives frequently solidifies its reputation in the public. Awareness at the core of the issue. Is it possible for the finished product to remain evaluated based on its own merits, or is it was permanently discolored by the whirlpool of dispute? Many people think that even if the film is remarkably well made or the conversation will be visually spectacular, focus on whether it warrants the chaos. On the other hand, if it is, critics who are contradictory or unsatisfactory will make reference to the well-reported production conflict as a sign of more serious flaws, as seen by Rachel Zegler. Her response to the possibility of Disney fear is probably the root cause of rejection, that the movie may never receive a fair opportunity to stand alone. Gal Gadot's role was also affected because the disputes originates from a location of increased security after achieving worldwide recognition thanks to earlier jobs that she can handle in a single, underperforming movie more readily. However, her performance is still to be eclipsed by the media. Narrative emphasizes individual disputes and alleged slights if the audience shows up in theaters or finally available on streaming already persuaded that the movie is disappointing. It might be difficult for both leads to alter that perception via their work on screen. In a different era, Rachel Zegler and Snow may have been advocated by Gal Gadot, White collaboratively displaying a shared passion for reimagining a beloved, a new Disney heroine and villain generation with a carefully controlled push. Looks may have highlighted their cooperative chemistry, while behind the sequences with featurettes may have shown in practice, polite creative interchange. It appears that the opportunity has passed, gone, replaced by reports of conflict and cancelled UK debut, and the idea that Disney is pulling away on its own digital platform in the event that the movie eventually, after a lengthy absence on Disney+, delay, or with little advertising, it will probably validate suspicions that the studio wishes to put the controversies behind it, instead of emphasizing them. On the other hand, if Disney attempts to support the movie with more promotion after that, critics who switch to streaming could inquire as to why they refuse to provide support in first position. Regardless of the route, the company's decision is criticized by enthusiasts, reporters, or business insiders who have been following every development, and Rachel Zegler's response for the time being, although not fully detailed in official declarations, reflect the anger of any performer ensnared in the vast studio's crossfire. Choices she brought to the project with enthusiasm and a feeling of accountability toward a pop culture character, history, and culture along the journey. She voiced views that some considered irreverent, ended up in conflict with a co-star, and put up with constant interruptions to the timetable for filming. Now the final blow might be a future in Snow White is in a state of uncertainty, eclipsed by the catastrophe designation. However, it is possible that after there is some closure as the dust settles, will be attained if the movie discovers in viewers who like the fresh perspective on Snow White, or if reviewers give it high marks. Features of Gadot and Zegler's performances, the negative sentiment might lessen. The disputes would then be present, primarily in footnotes to retrospectives in The history of the movie, on the other hand, if adaptation fails to live up to expectations, it could to represent a more significant collapse in Disney's approach of reinventing its classics. Either result emphasizes the risky nature of high-budget movies in a time of intense conjecture and real-time social media analysis. The purported response of Rachel Zegler to Disney's hesitant dedication to placing on its platform Snow White emphasizes how well-known franchises aren't impervious to errors in public relations if the harmony between brands that was once assured. For these kind of remakes, success is crumbling. It is a sign of a change in culture, in the way viewers interact with cherished narratives. People want realness, reverence for the original work, and a production setting free of drama. This adaptation's requirements struggled to complete the story in the end is representative of a conflict between business requirements and innovative. Disney succeeds by utilizing its streaming platform to support the presentation of the brand's unified identity. Cherished tales, both fresh and old, combined into one digital roof, but the chaos surrounding Snow White appears to be the opposite of that spirit, implying the studio may be timid, away from really accepting the. After the movie leaves theaters, Rachel Zegler's response to that prospect, if one can picture entering her shoes, must be a concoction of outrage, pain, and a persistent wish that the final version of the film may still surprise everyone. Thus, Snow White's future 2025 is in a precarious position. Those people have contributed money to it through the actors. Set designers are left wondering if viewers will ever witness the results of their work in an environment that permits sincere gratitude. While the reported Disney Plus rejection is still in place, unsubstantiated, the fact that it is deemed credible illustrates how significantly the reputation of the production has suffered. Can the movie conquer this flood of doubt, or becomes a warning story will rely on the upcoming months as the studio makes a decision how to effectively handle a once promising adjustments that have turned into a swirl of controversies and doubts.